I'd heard the stories, before creepy tales about people, accidentally slipping into the back rooms, an endless maze of dull yellow hallways and buzzing, fluorescent lights that never seemed to end, urban legends mostly, something the internet loved to spin for chills and memes. But I never thought it would happen to me. It started on a normal Thursday. I was at the office late, finishing up some work on a client proposal. The building was nearly empty. Most of my coworkers had already left for the day. I packed my things, ready to head out. But as I walked toward the exit, I noticed a door I'd never seen before. Old, rusty, tucked behind the janitor's closet. Curious and a little tired, I pushed it open. The door creaked, revealing a long corridor bathed in sickly yellow light. The walls lined with stained, cheap wallpaper that smelled like mildew and dust. The fluorescent bulbs overhead hummed loudly, flickering inconsistently. I stepped inside, thinking maybe it was a shortcut or a storage hallway I'd overlooked. But the moment I closed the door behind me, a chilling silence swallowed everything. Tried to turn back, but the hallway twisted unnaturally. The exit door I'd come through disappeared. Panic began to rise. I pulled out my phone to call for help, no signal. I walked forward, hoping to find an emergency exit or someone who could help. But all I saw were endless corridors stretching in every direction. All the same, stained yellow walls, dirty carpets, buzzing lights that never quite stabilized. Every hallway looked identical. There were no windows, no clocks, no signs of the outside world. I called out, but my voice felt swallowed by the oppressive space. I was alone, or so I thought. After what felt like hours of wandering, I heard something. Soft footsteps echoing somewhere nearby. I followed the sound, hoping to find another person. Around the corner I saw a figure, another lost soul. A man in his late 20s, disheveled and pale. His eyes were wide with fear. He introduced himself as Mark. Mark told me he'd been trapped here for days, maybe weeks. Time felt broken here. Sometimes he would sleep for what seemed like hours. Other times for days, but the back rooms never changed. He said the buzzing lights sometimes whispered, faint, unintelligible murmurs that made him feel like the walls themselves were alive. Together we decided to find a way out. As we moved deeper into the labyrinth, Mark warned me about the Watchers, shadowy shapes, lurking just beyond the edge of sight. They never attacked directly but watched silently, waiting. Once Mark said, he saw one glide through the corner of his. A dark silhouette with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the dim light. The Watchers were the reason no one ever escaped. They fed on fear, confusion, and isolation. We tried to stay quiet, avoid drawing attention. We found an old elevator shaft, long broken and rusted, a relic of a building that never really existed. On the wall nearby there was a clock. The hands spun wildly, sometimes speeding up, sometimes stopping entirely. Mark touched it and whispered, "Time here isn't real. It's like we're stuck in a nightmare that repeats itself." Suddenly the lights flickered violently and the hallway twisted. We ran. After what felt like a lifetime, I saw something new, a door unlike any other in the back rooms. It was wooden, painted dark green with a tarnished brass handle. We tried it. Locked. Behind the door we heard muffled voices, people trapped like us calling for help. We banged on the door, but it wouldn't open. And then from the other side came a whisper. "Don't let them out." Mark and I stood there, exhausted and terrified. Was this door a prison keeping us trapped? Or was it holding something worse inside? I don't know if we made the right choice. We left the door closed and turned away. But deep inside I feared we had just sealed our own fate, and maybe that of others. To be continued? We kept walking, but the maze didn't end. The walls bent weirdly, and the buzzing lights flickered like they were dying. Suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, nothing. Mark grabbed my arm, whispering, "They're here." The Watchers. Panic set in. The whispers started, soft, creepy voices saying my name. We found a cracked mirror glowing faintly. When I looked in, my reflection smiled back. But it wasn't me. Mark smashed the glass. The shards floated, then disappeared. The lights went out. I felt cold breath on my neck. I knew we weren't alone. The sun was setting over Miller's cornfield, casting long, eerie shadows between the stalks. The small town of Harrow Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets didn't stay buried for long. But some things, some nightmares, lingered just beneath the surface. It all started the night Jimmy Turner vanished. Jimmy was just 12 years old, an adventurous kid with a penchant for wandering off. That evening, he'd been playing near the edge of the cornfield when he suddenly disappeared without a trace. No screams, no signs of struggle, just gone. The townsfolk searched everywhere, flashlights cutting through the dark, dogs sniffing through the tall stalks. But all they found was a single red balloon tied to a broken cornstalk. That balloon would become a symbol of terror for the people of Harrow Creek. Old Man Harris told the story that no one wanted to believe. "It's the clown," he said, voice low and trembling.
"The one that haunts the cornfields."
They called him Patchface, a ghostly figure dressed in raggedy clown clothes, with a cracked porcelain mask and eyes that glowed faintly red in the dark. According to legend, Patchface had once been a carnival clown who went mad after a tragic accident. He vanished into the cornfields but never really left. Some say he collects lost souls to keep him company. Weeks later, a group of teenagers decided to test their courage. They called themselves the Reckoners, always chasing thrills, always daring each other to go further. Their leader, Casey, dared the others.
"Let's go find Patchface tonight.
If we make it out, we're heroes."
Armed with only flashlights and shaky bravado, they stepped into the towering corn. The stalks rustled around them like whispering voices. The air grew colder with every step. Suddenly, the sound of a distorted carnival music box echoed through the field. Their flashlights flickered. And then, out of the darkness, a pale hand with red-smeared fingers reached out from the corn. Casey's heart pounded as the group scattered, the cornfield swallowing their screams. One by one, they felt eyes watching them, cold, unblinking. Patchface was hunting. No one knew if they'd make it out. The cornfield wasn't just a patch of crops. It was a living maze. Twisting and turning with no way out, Casey's flashlight barely pierced the dense stalks as he stumbled forward, heart hammering in his chest. "Guys, where are you?" He called, but only the rustling corn answered. Behind him, the soft, eerie tinkling of the music box played again. Slow, warped, and unsettling. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed, like a child's giggle twisted through a broken speaker. Casey froze. A shadow flickered in the corner of his eye, a figure clad in tattered clown clothes. Its mask cracked but somehow terrifyingly alive. The glowing red eyes locked onto him. "Patchface," Casey whispered, barely able to breathe. Meanwhile, Sarah and Mike were trying to find each other in the labyrinthine corn. Every path seemed to loop back, trapping them deeper. "Sarah, over here!" Mike shouted, but his voice felt swallowed by the endless stalks. Then Sarah saw it, glowing footprints on the dirt path ahead, pulsing faint red like a trail of blood. She followed, hoping it would lead her to Mike. But the footprints led to a clearing where a torn, dirty circus tent stood, an anachronism in the middle of the cornfield. The tent flap fluttered, though no breeze stirred the air. A voice beckoned softly from inside. "Come in, come play." Sarah stepped inside, heart pounding, flashlight shaking. Inside the tent was a surreal nightmare. Carnival posters faded and peeling, old chairs arranged in a circle, and in the center, a cracked porcelain clown mask lying on a pedestal. Suddenly the mask twitched. The tent grew colder. A whisper drifted through the air. "Welcome, new friend." Sarah tried to run, but the tent seemed endless, walls stretching and contracting, like the field itself was alive. Outside, Mike heard her scream. He ran toward the sound, but was grabbed from behind by a cold, strong grip. Back near the edge of the field, Old Man Harris sat by his porch, eyes weary but sharp. He had seen too many disappearances. He told Casey's missing father the real story. "Patchface isn't just a ghost," he said, voice shaking. "He's a curse bound to the land. Each year he takes a soul to feed the corn's hunger. The clown was part of something ancient and terrible. No one escaped the cornfield untouched." Dr. Evelyn Moore, a renowned neurologist specializing in sleep disorders, receives a desperate call from the town's mayor. Residents have been suffering from chronic insomnia, leading to hallucinations, aggression, and in some cases death. Intrigued and concerned, Dr. Moore decides to investigate. Upon arrival, Evelyn is struck by the town's eerie silence. Streets are deserted, shops closed, and homes darkened. The few residents she encounters have sunken eyes, trembling hands, and speak in whispers about the Watcher who comes at night. Evelyn learns of a local legend, a figure known as the Watcher, who punishes those who sleep. Skeptical, she sets up a sleep clinic in the town's old hospital to monitor patients. The first night, surveillance cameras capture a shadowy figure standing over a sleeping patient, who awakens screaming and refuses to sleep again. As days pass, Evelyn herself begins to experience insomnia. She sees fleeting shadows, hears whispers, and feels an unshakable presence watching her. Her scientific mind struggles to rationalize the phenomena, but the line between reality and hallucination blurs. Delving into the town's history, Evelyn discovers that Drowsy Hollow was built atop the ruins of a settlement where a cult conducted sleep deprivation experiments. Believing that sleep was a barrier to enlightenment, they summoned an entity from beyond, the Watcher, who now feeds on the minds of the sleep-deprived. Determined to end the curse, Evelyn devises a plan to confront the Watcher. She induces a deep sleep using experimental methods, entering a lucid dream where she faces the entity. The Watcher reveals that as long as fear exists, it will thrive. Evelyn challenges it, confronting her deepest fears and breaking its hold on her. Evelyn awakens, the town bathed in morning light. Residents report having slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The oppressive atmosphere lifts and life begins to return to normal. Evelyn documents her findings, warning of the dangers of tampering with the boundaries of consciousness. Despite the town's apparent return to normalcy, Dr. Evelyn Moore couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The nights were quieter, yes, but the silence felt oppressive, as if the town was holding its breath. Evelyn's own sleep was restless, plagued by dreams of shadowy figures and whispering voices. One morning, she awoke to find a message, scrawled on her bathroom mirror. "You can't escape the Watcher." The words were written in a substance that resembled blood, but upon closer inspection it was a deep crimson ink. She dismissed it as a prank, perhaps by a townsperson still affected by the recent events. However, the unease lingered. Reports began to surface of individuals experiencing sleep paralysis, accompanied by visions of a shadowy figure watching them. Evelyn interviewed several patients, all describing the same entity, tall, faceless and cloaked in darkness. The Watcher had returned. Desperate for answers, Evelyn revisited the town's archives, uncovering a journal from a former cult member. The entries detailed rituals designed to bind the Watcher to the town, feeding it with fear and sleeplessness. The final entry read, "The Watcher is eternal. As long as fear exists, so shall it." Evelyn realized that the previous confrontation had only weakened the Watcher temporarily. To banish it permanently, a sacrifice was required. Someone had to willingly offer themselves to the entity, embracing their deepest fears. She prepared for the ritual, gathering the necessary components, ancient symbols, protective wards, and a personal item of significance. As night fell, she entered the heart of the forest, where the veil between worlds was thinnest. There she confronted the Watcher, its form shifting and pulsating with malevolent energy. Evelyn offered herself, confronting her own fears, failure, loss, and the unknown. The Watcher enveloped her, and for a moment all was silent. Evelyn awoke at dawn, lying in the clearing. The air was crisp, and the oppressive atmosphere had lifted. She returned to town, finding the residents at peace, their sleep undisturbed. The Watcher had been banished. However, Evelyn bore the scars of her encounter. She experienced moments of disassociation and vivid nightmares. She documented her experiences, warning others of the dangers of tampering with the unknown. Dr. Emily Harper, a renowned psychologist and professor at a prestigious university, had dedicated her career to debunking myths surrounding mental health institutions. Intrigued by the tales of St. Elmo's, she assembled a team of graduate students to explore the asylum and document their findings. Among the team were Mark, a tech-savvy skeptic, Lisa, an empath with a keen sensitivity to energies, and Jake, a history enthusiast with a penchant for the macabre. Armed with recording equipment, flashlights, and an insatiable curiosity, they ventured into the asylum on a crisp autumn morning. The asylum's interior was a labyrinth of peeling wallpaper, rusted bed frames, and shattered windows. As they navigated the corridors, The team encountered remnants of the past, patient records, personal belongings, and faded murals, depicting scenes of serenity that contrasted starkly with the building's current state. Lisa paused outside room 616, her hand hovering over the doorknob. "There's something off about this room," she murmured. Mark scoffed. "It's just an old room. Let's get this over with." They entered. Inside, the room was unnaturally pristine. Unlike the rest of the asylum, there was no dust, no decay. The walls were lined with soundproofing foam, and a single chair sat in the center, facing a large, unblemished mirror. As the team stepped further in, an oppressive silence enveloped them. Their footsteps made no sound, and even their breathing seemed muted. Mark attempted to speak, but no words emerged. Panic set in. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. The mirror began to glow faintly, revealing distorted reflections that moved independently of their real counterparts. In the suffocating silence, each team member experienced hallucinations tailored to their deepest fears. Emily saw visions of patients she couldn't save, their accusatory eyes piercing her soul. Lisa felt overwhelmed by a cacophony of emotions, despite the silence. Mark's skepticism crumbled as he faced apparitions challenging his beliefs. Jake, however, was drawn to the mirror. He approached it, entranced, and reached out. His reflection did the same. But instead of meeting cold glass, Jake's hand passed through and he was pulled in. Realizing the room fed on their fears and silence, Emily focused her thoughts. Recalling a lullaby her mother used to sing, she began to hum, the sound barely audible but enough to disrupt the room's grip. Lisa joined in, channeling her empathy to project calmness. The mirror cracked, and the oppressive silence shattered like glass. The door burst open and daylight flooded in. Emily, Lisa, and Mark stumbled out, gasping for air. Jake was gone. The autumn sun cast elongated shadows over the decaying facade of St. Elmo's Asylum. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of mildew and forgotten memories. Dr. Emily Harper sat alone in her study, the flickering candlelight dancing across the pages of her journal. She couldn't shake the image of Jake's serene smile as he vanished into the mirror. Her fingers trembled as she penned her thoughts. The silence room isn't just a place, it's a gateway. Jake didn't disappear. He crossed over. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily delved into the asylum's archives. Among the dusty tomes and brittle papers, she discovered a faded blueprint of the facility. Room 616 was marked with a peculiar symbol, circle encompassing an eye. Beside it, a note scrawled in hurried handwriting read, "Beware the Watcher's gaze." Her heart pounded. The Watcher, a name whispered in the asylum's darkest tales. Legend spoke of a malevolent entity that fed on silence and fear, trapping souls in a realm of eternal stillness. Emily's research led her to a former patient, Samuel Grayson, now residing in a nearby care facility. His records indicated he had spent time in room 216. She arranged a visit, hoping to glean insights into the room's mysteries. Samuel, a frail man with sunken eyes, greeted her with a wary smile. As they spoke, his demeanor shifted when she mentioned the silence. "Room?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "The Watcher sees all. Once you enter, it knows you." He recounted his experience, how the room consumed all sound, how the mirror reflected not his image but his fears. He spoke of voices urging him to stay, to embrace the silence. Emily left the facility with a sense of dread. The Watcher was real, and Jake was its latest victim. She knew she had to act. Returning to the asylum, she prepared for a confrontation. Armed with a portable recorder, a flashlight, and a pendant inscribed with protective runes, she stepped into room 616. The silence was immediate and absolute. Her footsteps made no sound. Her breath was inaudible. The mirror stood pristine, reflecting not her image but a dark void. Suddenly, the recorder hissed to life, emitting a distorted voice. "Emily, join us." The mirror's surface rippled and a hand reached out. Jake's hand. His eyes pleaded, his mouth forming silent words. Summoning her courage, Emily grasped his hand. A surge of energy pulled her forward, and the world dissolved into darkness. When Sarah and Michael Thompson relocated from bustling Chicago to the quiet town of Millfield, Indiana, They believed they were embracing a fresh start. Sarah, a freelance writer, sought tranquility to fuel her creativity, while Michael, an IT consultant, welcomed the opportunity to work remotely amidst serene surroundings. They were captivated by a charming, two-story Victorian home on the town's outskirts. Despite its age, the house was well maintained, boasting intricate woodwork, stained glass windows, and a wraparound porch that exuded timeless elegance. The real estate agent, a middle-aged woman named Linda, was forthcoming about the property's history. "It's been vacant for a few years," she explained. "The previous owners moved out after their children left for college. No tragic tales, just an old house waiting for new memories." The Thompsons were smitten. They finalized the purchase and moved in during the crisp days of early October. Their initial night in the house was uneventful. They unpacked essentials, shared a bottle of wine, and retired early. However, around 3 a.m., Sarah stirred awake. A faint humming sound permeated the room, a low, continuous tone that seemed to emanate from the very walls. She nudged Michael. "Do you hear that?" Michael listened intently. "It's probably the furnace or old pipes settling. These vintage homes have their quirks." Sarah nodded, attempting to dismiss her unease, and eventually drifted back to sleep. In the following days, the humming became a nightly occurrence. Always around the same time, Sarah began documenting the phenomenon, noting its consistency and peculiar resonance. She experimented by turning off all electronics, yet the humming persisted. Michael, initially skeptical, started to notice it too. They consulted an electrician, who inspected the wiring and found no issues. A plumber checked the pipes, attributing some noises to water flow but couldn't explain the persistent hum. Determined to identify the source, Sarah explored the basement. Amongst the cobwebs and aged storage boxes, she discovered a locked door. Curiosity piqued, she retrieved a set of old keys found in the kitchen drawer. One fit the lock perfectly. Behind the door was a small, windowless room with walls lined with what appeared to be soundproofing foam. In the center stood a vintage reel-to-reel tape recorder, its reels spinning silently. Sarah pressed the play button. A distorted voice crackled through the speakers.
Experiment 42, subject. Exhibits heightened sensitivity to auditory stimuli. The humming induces a trance-like state, facilitating communication with the entity.
The recording ended abruptly. Disturbed, Sarah delved into the town's archives. She uncovered a series of articles from the 1950s about a Dr. Harold Whitman, a neuroscientist who conducted clandestine experiments in his home, aiming to unlock the mind's hidden potentials through auditory stimulation. The house's address matched theirs. Further research revealed that several participants in Dr. Whitman's experiments had vanished without a trace. That night, the humming intensified. Sarah, unable to sleep, descended to the basement. The soundproof room's door was ajar. Inside, the tape recorder played on its own. As she stepped in, the door slammed shut behind her. The humming grew deafening, resonating within her skull. Suddenly, a shadowy figure materialized, a humanoid form with indistinct features, its presence overwhelming. The entity communicated not through words but emotions, sorrow, longing, and an insatiable hunger for connection. Sarah, paralyzed with fear, felt her consciousness slipping. Images flooded her mind, glimpses of the missing participants, their souls trapped, their identities eroded by the entity's influence. Summoning her strength, she screamed, breaking the trance. The entity recoiled and the humming ceased. The door creaked open and Sarah fled upstairs. Determined to end the nightmare, Sarah and Michael devised a plan. They set up speakers throughout the house, playing a cacophony of sounds to disrupt the humming's frequency. Simultaneously, they burned sage and recited protective chants, hoping to cleanse the space. The house reacted violently. Walls trembled, objects flew, and the humming morphed into a piercing wail. The entity appeared, its form more defined, eyes pleading. Sarah stepped forward. "You were human once. Trapped by your own experiments, let go." The entity hesitated, then slowly dissipated into a mist, the wail fading into silence. In the days that followed, the house was eerily quiet. The humming never returned. Sarah and Michael considered moving, but ultimately decided to stay, feeling a sense of responsibility to honor the lives affected by Dr. Whitman's experiments. Sarah penned an article detailing their experiences, urging others to approach the unknown with caution and respect. Though peace had returned, on some nights, just as sleep beckoned, Sarah thought she heard a faint hum, a reminder of the house's haunting past.